When we see something moving, our first instinct is to assume it's alive. But biological movement is rarely just random. Think about a tiny seedling buried in the dirt. Over several days, it pushes soil aside and stretches its stem upward, seeking out the sunlight. Now compare that to a cat resting on a porch. It spots a mouse, turns its focus, and suddenly bursts into a high-speed sprint. The speeds are entirely different, but the goal is the same. Both the plant and the cat are making a deliberate movement to respond to a change in their environment. We do this constantly too. Imagine you are cooking dinner and your hand accidentally brushes against a hot stove. You don't pause to analyze the temperature and decide what to do. You instantly flinch and pull away. Every survival-based action like this is a specific, carefully managed response triggered by an event in the world around us. If our bodies couldn't execute these reactions the moment they were needed, we wouldn't last very long in a world full of hazards. But how does the body ensure that a burn on your finger moves your arm rather than accidentally moving your leg? It works through a specific sequence. For a body to react safely, 3 distinct things happen in order. First, sensors detect that the environment has changed, like picking up heat from a stove. Second, the system recognizes that danger and finds the right path for a signal to travel toward an output. Finally, the signal arrives at the exact location to trigger a physical movement, so you pull away. This perfectly timed sequence is what prevents our movements from being chaotic. It ensures we react to the world with precision. In our bodies, this engine is run by 2 specialized types of tissue working as a team. Nervous tissue acts as a high-speed alarm network. It's responsible for detecting a change and transmitting the warning signal across the body. Muscular tissue is the part that actually moves. It receives that alarm and physically contracts to get you out of danger. By splitting the work between a detection network and a movement network, our bodies can execute life-saving reflexes in the blink of an eye. This system is what we call control and coordination. Control is picking the right volume for your voice, whispering instead of shouting. Coordination is nerves and muscles working as a team, pulling your hand off a hot surface. These 2 systems allow us to be active participants in our environment, navigating through the world while staying safe. So as you study, remember, if a living thing moves and it isn't just growing, you're likely seeing a coordinated response to the world. But if survival depends on this system working in a fraction of a second, how do those signals travel so fast across your body? This is possible because of specialized cells called neurons. They act like the high-speed wiring in a house, carrying messages using tiny electrical impulses. Your body contains a communication network more precise than our most advanced technology. Next time, we'll look at how it manages to keep you one step ahead. Imagine you accidentally touch a hot stove. Before you even realize what happened, your hand snaps back. We know the brain is in charge of processing pain, so how did your hand know to pull away before your brain actually felt the heat? The body has a hidden mechanism built for pure speed. To understand how this works, we first have to look at the body's internal wiring. This diagram shows a neuron, the specialized cell responsible for transmitting signals throughout your nervous system. Information from your environment first enters through these branching structures called dendrites. From there, the signal moves into the central cell body, which processes the incoming data. Once processed, the signal is sent down this long cable called the axon, carrying the impulse away toward its next destination. Notice how the physical shape of the neuron forces a strict one-way flow. The signal always travels from the dendrite to the cell body and down the axon. This directional traffic keeps communication across your body organized. Inside that axon, the information travels as a high-speed electrical impulse. But when the impulse reaches the very end of the wire, it hits a roadblock. There is a microscopic empty space separating this neuron from the next one. This gap is called the synapse. So how does an electrical charge cross a physical void where there is no wire? At the end of the axon, the electrical impulse forces the release of specialized chemicals. These chemicals float across the synapse, bind to the dendrite of the next cell, and spark a brand new electrical charge on the other side. The nervous system relies on electricity for speed within the cell, but it uses chemicals to bridge the physical gaps between cells. Now, let's put these cells together and look back at that hot stove. As soon as the heat damages the skin, a sensory neuron fires. It sends an urgent danger signal shooting straight up your arm. That signal travels directly to the spinal cord. Instead of routing this message all the way up to the brain to think about it, the spinal cord uses a relay station, called an interneuron, to bounce the signal right back out. This return path is a motor neuron. It carries a command straight to the muscles in your arm, telling them to contract and pull your hand to safety. This specific, closed loop is a reflex arc. It executes the physical movement entirely without conscious thought. Your brain isn't completely ignored. A copy of the signal continues up the spinal cord, which is exactly why you feel the pain a fraction of a second after you've already moved. If your body waited for nerve impulses to reach the brain, for the brain to process the pain, and then for a command to travel back down, you would suffer severe burns. Bypassing the brain is a necessary survival mechanism. Voluntary actions are deliberate, slow, and routed through the brain. Reflexes are automatic, routed through the spinal cord, and prioritize speed. For a reflex arc, trace this exact sequence: sensory neuron, spinal cord, motor neuron, muscle. This pathway generates quick responses to protect the body. By delegating these simple, urgent tasks to the spinal cord, the nervous system frees up the brain to handle much heavier lifting. So, what exactly is happening up there in the skull to handle the non-emergencies, the learning, the memory, and the complex decisions? To move from basic survival reflexes to actual human intellect, we have to travel up the spinal cord and look at the intricate architecture of the brain itself. Think of your body as the most advanced organic spaceship in the universe. Right now, billions of systems are firing perfectly to keep you alive, and they all take their orders from one central location. We are about to step onto the bridge and enter the command room. Welcome to the human brain. This soft 3-pound organ acts as the master coordinator for your entire life. It manages everything from high-level thinking, like deciding what to say next, to the quiet background life support systems that keep your heart beating while you sleep. To manage these tasks, the brain is organized into 3 sectors. The pink forebrain handles conscious jobs like thinking and processing senses. Underneath, the midbrain and hindbrain control automatic functions like reflexes, balance, and steady coordination. This division of labor keeps the body running efficiently. By separating your active thoughts from your automatic survival systems, the brain ensures that your background life support never pauses, even when you are busy focusing on the world around you. Let's step onto the captain's bridge, the forebrain. Every deliberate choice you make and every voluntary movement you perform begins right here, inside this dense network of firing signals. To make those decisions, the bridge needs data. Looking at this schematic, you'll see specific zones dedicated to incoming sensory information. Every sight, sound, and smell you encounter travels up your nerves and arrives at these processing areas. But raw data isn't enough. It has to mean something. That information is passed to interpretation zones. Here, the brain combines the new sights and sounds with your stored memories to help you recognize what is happening around you. Once you decide how to react, the message goes to the motor areas. These zones send out a clear command that travels down to your muscles, telling your body exactly how to move. By turning raw environmental data into meaningful experiences and then into physical actions, the forebrain allows us to consciously interact with our world. Now let's leave the bridge and travel down into the engine room. The midbrain and hindbrain run the body's automatic background systems, handling the vital tasks that require no conscious effort from you. Look at this section highlighted in gold, the cerebellum. While the bridge decides where you want to go, the cerebellum manages the precision needed to get there. It maintains your posture and keeps you balanced while you are walking a straight line or riding a bicycle. Right next to it is the medulla. This is the manager for your vital background tasks. It controls involuntary actions that must never stop, like the steady beat of your heart, your blood pressure, and your digestion. Nearby, the pons helps regulate your breathing and coordinates the cycles that tell your body when it's time to sleep or wake up. Here's a simple way to remember the difference. Use the forebrain to think and sense, and trust the mid and hindbrain to handle the automatic life processes. Because these sections work independently, you never have to remember to beat your heart or digest your food. This automation frees up your conscious mind to focus on learning and exploring. Because this soft command center is so essential for survival, It requires a heavy-duty security system to keep it safe from injury. Take a look at this cross-section. The first layer of defense is a shock-absorbing liquid. The brain sits inside a fluid-filled membrane that acts as a cushion, soaking up the force of sudden jolts or bumps. Beyond that liquid is a protective wrap. And finally, the rigid outer barrier, a hard, bony box we call the skull, which seals the entire structure safely away from the outside world. Within this fortress, the brain fires rapid electrical signals across the body. This high-speed system allows animals to react to danger with incredible speed. But this system only works if you have a brain and a network of nerves. So what about living things that are completely missing a command center? Plants have no brain and no nervous system, yet they still find ways to move and grow toward the light. To do this, they've developed an entirely different, brainless system for control, and we'll see exactly how that works in our next video. Animals use complex networks of muscle fibers and firing neurons to run, jump, or react. But plants manage to move and react to their environment without a single muscle cell or nerve ending. To understand how they pull this off, we have to look at the two distinct ways plants move. First is the immediate response. This happens instantly and doesn't rely on the plant growing at all. The second type is directional growth. This is a much slower process, driven by cells expanding in a specific direction over time. Since plants lack a central nervous system to coordinate these actions, they rely on specialized hydraulic and chemical pathways to execute these two types of movement. Let's look closer at that immediate response mechanism in this mimosa leaf. When touched, the plant communicates the stimulus using rapid electrochemical signals that travel from cell to cell, no nerves required. This movement relies on water pressure. The chemical signals trigger a sudden shift in water volume within the leaf's base. As water rushes out, these base cells deflate. Losing structural support causes the entire leaf above to mechanically hinge downward. These plant reflexes are hydraulic systems, powered by changing water pressure within individual cells. The other category of movement is growth-based. This animated diagram illustrates tropisms. A tropism is a directional growth movement, either toward or away from an environmental trigger. Phototropism is the plant's response to light. Chemotropism is navigation based on chemical signals, like a pollen tube growing toward an ovule to ensure reproduction. Then there's geotropism, the response to gravity. If gravity pulls downward and roots follow that pull while shoots grow against it, which one represents positive geotropism and which is negative? Growing toward the stimulus is positive. So roots show positive geotropism, while shoots, growing away from the Earth's pole, show negative geotropism. Because plants are rooted in place, they depend on these slow, deliberate movements to position their bodies perfectly to capture water, sunlight, and nutrients. To coordinate these precise directional movements across their entire structure, plants use chemical messengers known as hormones. This table breaks down the three main hormones that promote growth. Auxin helps cells elongate, gibberellins drive stem growth, and cytokinins stimulate rapid cell division in areas like fruits and seeds. But plants also need to know when to stop. Abscisic acid acts as the brakes, inhibiting growth and triggering responses like leaf wilting to conserve energy during tough conditions. The physical shape a plant takes on any given day is the real-time result of this chemical tug-of-war between hormones that drive growth and those that halt it. Let's look at this cross-section of a plant shoot tip to see exactly how this works with auxin and phototropism. When a plant bends toward the sun, you might guess the growth hormone moves toward the light to make it happen. Actually, it does the opposite. Auxin diffuses away from the light, collecting strictly on the shady side of the stem. That heavy concentration of auxin stimulates the cells on the dark side. It forces them to stretch and grow much longer than the cells sitting in the sun. Because the cells on the back of the stem are now longer, they push the entire structure forward. This asymmetrical growth mechanically forces the tip to bow straight toward the light. When preparing for your exam, keep these two rules in mind. A tropism is directional growth, toward or away from a stimulus. An auxin always moves to the shade, causing cells to elongate. Plants function as slow-motion chemical machines, managing growth and movement through precise distribution. But for animals facing an immediate threat, survival requires a higher speed system. Your nervous system is incredibly fast. When you touch a hot stove, an electrical impulse travels down a nerve fiber to pull your hand away in milliseconds. But it has a serious limitation. Those signals only reach the specific cells connected directly to the end of that exact nerve. Imagine a squirrel spotting a predator. A localized twitch isn't enough to survive. The squirrel needs an immediate whole-body preparation to run or fight. To achieve this, the body uses a second communication network. The adrenal glands drop a chemical called adrenaline directly into the bloodstream. Instead of moving point to point along a wire, this chemical acts as a system-wide broadcast. As that adrenaline washes over the body, the heart beats faster to pump oxygen. The lungs expand, and blood is actively diverted away from the digestive tract and pushed straight into the skeletal muscles. Nerves trigger the initial realization of danger, but this ability to send widespread, persistent chemical messages through the blood is the defining job of the endocrine system. Human bodies rely on a similar, highly decentralized network of glands distributed from head to toe. Deep inside the brain is the pituitary gland. It acts as the master controller, dictating your overall physical growth and bone development. Moving down to the neck, we find the thyroid. This gland is your metabolic engine, setting the precise speed at which your cells consume energy. In the abdomen sits the pancreas, which acts as the body's fuel regulator by managing the exact levels of sugar in your blood. And in the lower pelvic region, the testes and ovaries coordinate long-term reproductive development and physical changes. Each of these organs manages a specialized task, but they operate on the exact same principle. They manufacture chemical hormones and release them into the circulatory system to find their targets. This creates a mechanical problem. If these glands are isolated from one another and they dump chemicals into a continuous circulatory loop, how do they know when to stop? This animated graph plots blood sugar levels against a normal baseline. Biology solves the stopping problem using a feedback loop. It works exactly like a thermostat reading the temperature of a room. After a meal, your blood sugar spikes above the baseline. The pancreas detects this dangerous spike. It releases the hormone insulin, signaling your cells to absorb the excess sugar, forcing that rising line to turn and drop. Think about this mechanical relationship. If insulin makes blood sugar drop, what must the pancreas do when the level returns to normal to prevent a dangerous crash? It scales back production immediately. The gland continually senses the blood's composition and closely adjusts its hormone release up or down. It's a dynamic, auto-balancing algorithm rather than a simple on or off switch. Because human survival relies entirely on this continuous chemical balancing act, any failure in a single gland or feedback loop creates massive whole-body consequences. If the pituitary gland fails to scale back its release of growth hormone during development, the body simply keeps building bone and tissue, resulting in gigantism. The thyroid requires environmental inputs, specifically iodine, to function correctly. A lack of iodine causes the gland to swell into a goiter. We intervened on a massive scale by artificially fortifying everyday table salt to keep this specific gland working. If the pancreas loses its ability to produce insulin, the entire feedback loop we looked at earlier breaks. This is diabetes. The patient has to perform the job of the gland manually, calculating their blood sugar and injecting the missing chemical themselves. This comparison table shows exactly how our two major control systems divide the labor. The nervous system uses electrical impulses for fast, highly targeted actions. The endocrine system uses chemical hormones for slower, persistent instructions that reach multiple organs at once. True coordination requires both. Nerves provide the instant reflex to pull your hand back from danger, while your endocrine network prepares your entire body to deal with whatever happens next. You have a massive amount of mechanisms to memorize for this chapter. Between human reflexes, brain regions, and plant tropisms, it is easy to get lost in the details. We are going to build a unified mental map so you can categorize how these different systems interact during your exam. This conceptual map shows our primary categorization matrix. Every biological response we study falls into these four branches. First, we separate by the organism, animals versus plants. Then we separate by the method of transmission, the nervous system and the hormonal system. To master the exam questions, you have to track how these branches compensate for one another. Notice how the map connects the animal branch to both nervous and hormonal networks. Plants lack a nervous system entirely, meaning their survival relies strictly on that single hormonal pathway. Possessing this high-level architectural view prevents a common mistake. If you try to apply the rapid response logic of an animal's nerve impulses to a plant's slower, growth-based system, your answers will be structurally incorrect. Let's focus on the animal nervous system. This 3D model shows the human brain, dividing its workload into 3 specific regions to handle complex voluntary actions through a strict division of labor. The forebrain at the front operates as the main thinking center, receiving sensory impulses and managing conscious decisions. The hindbrain, situated at the base, runs continuously in the background. It regulates your balance, posture, and vital baseline involuntary actions like breathing and blood pressure. Now look at this flowchart of a reflex arc. When you touch a hot object, you are in physical danger. Waiting for a signal to travel all the way up to the forebrain for processing takes too long. Instead, the sensory nerve connects directly to a motor nerve right here in the spinal cord, triggering an instant muscular response that bypasses conscious thought. Right after that physical reflex pulls you to safety, the hormonal system takes over. The adrenal glands secrete adrenaline directly into your blood. This chemical wave travels to your heart and skeletal muscles, increasing your breathing rate and diverting oxygen to prepare your entire body for a sustained fight or flight response. Animal survival relies on this dual-track strategy. Spinal reflexes handle immediate damage prevention in milliseconds, while the brain and endocrine glands manage sustained, strategic action. This split-screen diagram highlights how plants respond to stimuli without any nervous tissue or muscle fibers. On the left, a shoot bends toward a light source. On the right, a sensitive plant leaf folds immediately after physical contact. Let's test your active recall. Take a look at these 2 reactions. Which of these movements is actually caused by cellular growth? The shoot bending toward the light is the growth-dependent movement, known as phototropism. When light hits one side, a hormone called auxin diffuses to the shaded side of the stem. The concentration of auxin stimulates the cells on that dark side to grow longer, physically bending the plant toward the light. The folding leaf on the right involves no growth. When touched, those specific plant cells rapidly change the amount of water they hold inside, causing them to shrink and the leaf to droop instantly. On your exam, misidentifying a temporary water pressure reaction as a permanent growth tropism will result in lost points. Pay close attention to whether the prompt asks about rapid reactions or directional growth. This comparison table breaks down the core limitations of both systems. We need to contrast the speed of electrical impulses against the reach of chemical diffusion. The nervous system generates electrical impulses that travel rapidly. However, an impulse can only deliver a message to the specific cells physically wired into that neural network. It is a point-to-point delivery system. The endocrine system solves this reach problem. By releasing chemical hormones into the bloodstream, it acts like a radio broadcast. The molecules diffuse everywhere, and any cell with the correct receptor can receive the signal, allowing for coordination across disconnected parts of the body. Biological design requires a compromise. Organisms rely on the speed of nerves for urgent localized tasks, but they use the hormonal system for synchronized full-body coordination. Let's apply this synthesis directly to exam tactics, starting with a frequently tested diagram, the structure of the neuron. This diagram shows 2 connecting neurons. A frequent error here is forgetting to identify the synapse. Electrical impulses cannot jump this physical gap. The signal must convert into a chemical neurotransmitter to cross the void to the dendrite of the next cell. Let's try a rapid-fire multiple-choice question. Which part of the brain controls involuntary actions like blood pressure and salivation? The correct answer is the medulla, located in the hindbrain. The spinal cord handles rapid reflexes, but baseline involuntary maintenance is coordinated by the brain. Identifying exactly where a physiological decision is processed is the key to bypassing trick questions on the test. Look at this checklist. You now have a structural grip on neuron anatomy, the functional regions of the brain, plant tropisms, and endocrine pathways. Use this specific framework for your final revision session. You have the necessary context to handle these questions. Living organisms face a chaotic, unpredictable environment every single day. They survive because of precise coordination between the nervous and hormonal pathways we've covered.